The appointment of alternates and a motion to have Alan.
I'd like to appoint Alan Baker as a member for tonight's meeting.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion clearly passes. All right, on to our budget workshop. First will be Parks and Rec, Human Services, and Elderly Commission. Oh, we don't have a chair.
I'll grab one, no worries.
I'll get your chairs.
This one's great.
Or not. I'll get the kitchen chair.
Which one do we want to do first?
We'll let you choose. How's that?
All right. So we can do Human Services first if you'd like. And I brought slides of my PowerPoint presentation that I gave to the Board of Selectmen. I won't subject you to that. So I have those. So this is Human Services. And I just want to polls and then sign.
Thank you.
Do you want me to go through it, ask questions?
You know,
I'm not really sure.
I would
what
say,
to
you know, some of us saw your presentation to the Board of Selectmen, so really right now we're here. So why don't you hit just some of the highlights? I know that it's brand, you know, you just started this and.
Okay, so Human Services, and that is where we handle all the social service aspects of things in town. Providing support for energy assistance, nutrition assistance, general assistance in regards to rent. We handle the evictions in the community, as well as mental health, substance abuse, a little bit of everything, myriad of things that we handle. We had a homeless person in our office today looking for services out at the shelter, and went through the myriad of calling 211 and helping her with that. So it really changes on a day-to-day basis. We just finished our energy assistance, and we'll be starting our rental rebate program in the next 2 weeks. That's pretty much Human Services in a nutshell.
So when you were reviewed by the Board of Selectmen, was there anything added or subtracted or things that you feel are going to negatively impact your department?
So we were reduced $300 in the supply and equipment line from the budget that I had inherited. And again, I just started this in January, so the budget that I did submit was changed a little bit by me, but I didn't want to go in and change a lot because I was learning. It was also reduced by $500, and the evictions and ejection line was reduced to $1,400, so that would be a $600 reduction. If I had to pick of the three, I would ask for the eviction and ejection line to be restored, or in all honesty, I'll be asking for an added appropriation. I can never predict what the evictions and ejections are going to be. It's just on a case-by-case basis. I can tell you that just starting in January to now, I've already done 6, and I have 1 scheduled for Friday. So it's whenever the fax machine goes off from the state marshal's office is when we know. We do have the ability to kind of track on the state judicial website potential evictions, so we kind of try and, but again, sometimes they're settled, sometimes they're not. One case we got 24 hours notice. Other ones they give us 3 or 4 days. It really depends. So I would hate to see that line cut and then we have to come and ask for more money to help that. And that helps with the storage, because we have to take the possession of the person that's being ejected, we have to take their possession for 15 days. So that goes to pay for that. The travel line, we could reduce that because with me moving down to the Human Services office in regards to myself being there more often, I do have access to a town car. So my staff could potentially use that if I don't have myself a number of meetings that day. So that's my thought on that.
What's under, because it went, you spent like 3,400 a day and you're asking for.
So general assistance covers everything from rent assistance to food assistance. Again, it changes every day as to what it is. I did ask for it to go back to what it used to be, just so that we can start to reach that goal. But we also did receive a grant last year that helped us not need that money, and that's not always promised. So I'm trying to rebuild that line back to what it used to be from two directors ago, basically. So it could help with clothing if we need to help someone purchase clothing. It's a whole host of different things.
Any other questions?
Is there any way to track how many evictions you've done current budget year? Just because I see you've spent $495 to date, but you said you've done 6 since January. Do you know how many last year? Or no?
I would have to pull the numbers on that.
Okay.
I wasn't
Right, I
the
know.
department head at the time.
Yeah.
But I have all that information in the office, and Jane would be able to put that together for me.
Okay.
Some of them, and just sorry to interrupt, some of them don't require, the belongings in the person's home are deemed unsafe, unsanitary. We don't take possession of them, and they're just left as junk. So there, at least 2 of them, we didn't take anything. So again, it's.
Do you have to pay for disposal of them?
No.
Okay.
Just, I mean, and then maybe this is a contractual thing, you requested $102,000 under salary full-time, and the board of selectmen went to 104. Is that something we did here, or is that something that the contract changed?
The longevity of the 2 current people.
Remember the 2 people in that office
Okay.
had.
Well, plus they received longevity in the clerical contract, and they both went to a new year.
Okay, so that
step
happened
year.
after your request to them?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I just wanted to, this curious as to why they bumped it up and you weren't even, so that's okay. Gotcha.
Anything else on human services? Anybody? All right. Looks like we're good. What's next?
We could do senior centers probably.
You opened right to it, it's right after. So hit our highlights and then we'll go
Sure.
from there.
So, senior center, call it, kind of acts similarly to Parks and Recreation. We provide different services and different activities and programs for our seniors to do. We provide some healthcare programs to them, like a foot clinic, diabetes clinic, blood pressure, wellness checks in regards to that stuff. We try and do that in-house in working with the BNA, and we're sitting down with them right now to kind of revamp that program to see what we can do to lower the age of eligible seniors to come to the senior center to try and boost the attendance. Right now, currently, you have to be 60 years old to attend the senior center, so we're looking to change that to 55, since we have a number of 50 that are housing developments here in town that aren't able to come to the center because of their age. So we're trying to come up with some new ideas. We have a great program assistant who's very energetic and trying to get new seniors to come in. And then we do the normal daily nutritional things that they come in for. We also host Meals on Wheels where we bring, our volunteers bring the meals to their homes if they're deemed a shut-in. So that's kind of what we do at at Social Service, Senior Services, sorry, I will get it right. And for some of their seniors, a lot of them live by themselves. Some of them will come in and it's the only conversation they'll have with a living being for the entire day. So sometimes those conversations are quite lengthy. But in just, again, my short time being there, the seniors that do come to the center really do embrace it, and I think that they would be lost without it. The selectmen decided to reduce our program line to $4,000, which I tried to increase $5,315. That was just taking money from different spots in the previous director's budget and reallocating it to the program line, and not really asking for new money. But they reduced it to $4,000, which was $500 less than the adopted FY18 budget. And those are programs that we do in-house for the seniors.
And I wasn't there for that one. What was the rationale of why they did that?
I wasn't given.
Okay.
I'm assuming that possibly they would like the seniors to pay for themselves to do their programs.
Gotcha. Any questions or any comments?
On a given day, how many meals do you serve? Is that what's on this?
Yeah, so in my
chart
chart.
Because I see like July, it says like 13, but I don't know if that's.
Okay. So those are that's Food for Thought. That's a program that we do where we bring the seniors in and introduce them to a new food that they might not be familiar with, and try and introduce them to some other nutritional activities that they could do with that. That's not a lunch count.
It didn't sound right.
No. No. Usually lunch counts are plus lunches, and then we have our Meals on Wheels program where, again, that fluctuates based on hospitalizations, long-term rehab visits for some of our seniors, and as well as people removing themselves from the program. Because in order to come to the center, you can't be eligible for Meals on Wheels because you can't be a shut-in cafe. It doesn't work like that.
Any other questions? Department?
And the last one, Parks and Recreation. That budget was submitted prior to me taking over, and we haven't had a meeting yet.
Yeah, and that's okay. We kind of briefly went over it anyways. It's really just your secretary.
Right.
And yeah, you're fine.
So
Fine.
I can add that going forward. Back to Parks and Recreation. Again, we host a whole host of different activities, programs, swim lessons, after-school programming, council for substance abuse in the community. We oversee the Power Pack program, which is a weekend backpack program that we send home backpacks full of food for kids that qualify for the program through the Broadbrook Elementary School with a great partnership with the Board of Education. We're working also with the Board of Education in regards to our substance abuse issues and opioid addiction issues that we have in the community, and trying to grow that coalition. And we do operate 12 months a year, not just during the summer. So we like to always get that out to everybody. So at the Board of Selectmen budget, our supply and equipment line was reduced $3,000 to $20,670, eliminated completely, which is not untypical for budget cycle. So we $6,000 reduction in total.
Right, so correct me if I'm wrong though, and if my math is right. I mean, one of the main reasons we brought all three departments together was to streamline it, more effective management, more effective communication. But at this point in time, also saving, give or take.
Yeah, so we're a little under $24,000
Yep.
savings to the town in actual hardcore money. But if you add everything else together, like pension, insurance, other contractual things, it's well over that number. The three departments worked well previously together, and even in this reorganization, we're just continuing that relationship and strengthening it. Three of us really do work well together and are embracing the change. The staff is great, my team is great, and they really just do their jobs.
Great. Any questions? Anything?
Got the information.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Police, Emergency Management, and Police Commission. I'm gonna start taking notes on this piece of paper.
You're ready.
I tell you.
She conducts it, you gotta stand for the presentation.
Okay. Ready.
You ready?
Are we ready?
Thanks for having us here. I'd like to acknowledge the board for allowing us to come here and present, and of course, your volunteerism and work is applauded. We're here today for the budget and public safety plan. We're represented by our chairman, Robert Leach, and my deputy police chief. We're going to give you a holistic program. We've been meeting with our boards and commissions as we've gone through the police department and administrators and elected officials like Bob. We can all agree that funding and oversight for every town agency, including the police department, should be fiscally responsible, efficient, cost-effective, and transparent. I've been here for nearly 15 years, Roger's at 11. We've worked with our commissioners for a lot of years. The Board of Finance, we've established a reputation that we are managers who are prudent and responsible, and we care about what's best for the town. But we also have to agree that our community has demands, and we need to meet those community demands. We have to meet this goal, keeping you and us safe, and doing it with a risk liability reduction so that we do it safely. We have neighborhoods in our town, residential. As I speak, you can think about East Windsor and what we have to police. Businesses, schools, groups of people throughout town who need the support and assistance of their police department every single day. There are certain groups that are at risk, such as our senior citizens, our youth, and our students, that we have to program for, police, and provide services for, and we like to pay special attention to those groups. Some of the things that it's important to consider, we have new laws that are coming on all the time, such as the most recent one, domestic violence, a lot of new mandates, unfunded programs sometimes come across. You might start to see some of that stuff with like body cameras and things of that nature. We have to offer the appropriate programming to help educate our children about narcotic use and abuse. We're in the midst of an opioid epidemic, and we have to work with our schools in partnership to have a good impact on people. We have to stay current with our service needs and societal shifts. What do I mean by that? It means it wasn't the same being a cop 25 years ago, almost 30 now for me, than it is now. There's nearly a doubling in police services for people with mental health issues and what's occurring in our society. We're struggling with partnership and community belief about what our services are. We're under attack and under the gun nationally, but in East Windsor, we enjoy a tremendous partnership and a connection with our community. We don't have a lot of the problems that you're seeing on TV in national news because we work at it. We also want to use technology, and there's a lot out there. I think you all remember recently we came before you for financing for our new CAD and records management system. So we can take our data, what we do and how we do it, and target these officers so they don't just drive around where crime is to prevent it, because we have a lot of data and information. There's changes, there's challenges, there's growth in our town. Whether we want it or not, it's going to occur, and we have to police it. So let's talk about the police budget. It's really the public safety plan. Our budget is what allows us to provide public safety services in the town of East Windsor, and I'm going to kick it over to the deputy.
Okay, if anybody who knows me, again, or doesn't know me, my name is Roger Hart, and I'm kind of known at the police department as the numbers guy, so that's why the chief slides me over to deal with the numbers, which
Over here.
I'm fine with. So as you see in your handouts to the board, you have a very detailed description of our budget, not only a detailed description of our budget, but also salary lines, how much each person makes on a 52-week basis. It's mapped out completely in your house. So if you have any, happy to talk to you about that. So let's roll to the next slide, and we'll talk about some reductions and why. So you'll see in the officer's salary line, we have a slight decrease in that line. Well, why is that? Well, it's simply because as our officers age out and retire, we replace those senior officers at a high pay grade with junior officers at a lower pay grade, because our officers have 5 steps to get to the highest point. So that shows that reduction. And for example, in your handout, you'll see that Sergeant Andrusko is no longer with us because he retired last year and was replaced by Sergeant Minigan, who starts at a lower rate as a sergeant. So that's why we see a reduction there. The clerical stat shows a very slight reduction. I'm not going to waste too much time on that. It's $493. In our budget, that's not a big deal. But the longevity, I think, is a big deal. We should have a reduction in our longevity. And the reason why is because our dispatchers we negotiated with them through collective bargaining. They gave up their longevity through collective bargaining. So we're starting to see that reduction now. So as those and also when those senior officers retire, we're hiring junior officers at a much lower, and their lower rate, and the longevity doesn't affect it. So we're going to see, as we move forward, a reduction in that number. So some increases. We'd like to be as transparent as possible. 2.25% increase in this line reflects bargaining, or reflects contractual obligations through contracts. Dispatcher salary. This is the point where we're seeing some of the officers, or some of the dispatchers rather, they're going to those next steps.
One step takes 1 year to achieve that pay increase over the 5-year period.
So you have a junior dispatcher that's going to the next step, and you show a nominal increase of $1,934, and that could be, and again, we share that with you in the handout. You can see it split out by exactly how many weeks are going to be on one pay rate and how many weeks are going to be at the next pay rate. It's all spelled out. PD overtime. A 5% increase, it seems like a lot, but if some of the board members can remember from last year, it was tough. It was a tough budget year. And the previous year, the same thing happened. Where can we make cuts? That was brought to us. So we suggested the overtime line is probably the best places to make cuts at the time. In order to get to the level where we needed to be with the boards, we took a reduction. We're trying to get just some of that, a little bit of that reduction back. So we're showing an increase there. Training salary, again, the same reason, the previous. We gave back cuts in that over the last couple of years. We're just trying to eat a little bit more of that back to where we should be. Each line here, to save us having to go through every slide, we just threw that show increases. And most of them, or several of them, are for the same reason that I just told you previously. They were givebacks. When the board came to us and said, where can we cut? We said, take from here, here, and here. The vehicle maintenance line is one of those. We were reduced, I believe, just about $3,000, a little less than $3,000 from that line. So we're just trying to eke some of that back if we possibly can. Uniform and equipment, most of that stuff is all contractually obligated lines that we have to fund. So this is what we originally proposed, is a 0.99% budget increase for all the reasons that we just talked about. And that's what we presented to the Board of Select.
So what we normally like to do when we work with you, we like to give you a structured order of importance in case the budget gets tough and cuts need to be made. You've often sought our input so that you don't just decide willy-nilly, we know our budget, safety won't be impacted or damaged, so this is a particular line that's been identified.
And the reason why we could give this to you and say, okay, there's $4,000 if you're looking for, this is probably the first place that I would recommend cutting. And the reason it being is because we went to the police commission several months ago and asked that money be transferred to purchase tasers. We're in the process of replacing about 6 tasers right now. We're in the middle of that. So at the time we presented this budget originally, we didn't know that we had that funding available. So now we do, so we're just giving that to you. So if we do that, it'll reduce it down to 0.87. So budgets for a police department, this is virtually unheard of. 95% of our budget is salary. Generally speaking, it's around an 80-20, 85-15, depending on the size of the police department. But I've watched this number this operational number gets smaller and smaller and smaller the 11 years that I've been here. And I think it speaks for itself. And when we're asked to cut, it's difficult to see, or easy to see, where those cuts are going to occur.
The smallest cuts now start to bleed into the salary side. So our shift minimums, our police officer protections, our investigations, our coverage of the schools starts to be immediately impacted when it hits the salary side of the business. So what I want to say is we're a service-oriented industry. We have overhead and we have financial obligations. Our business is public safety, it's protecting and serving people, but we have a cost to doing this business. We need gas, we need electricity, we need to pay our personnel. 85% of what we're asked to do by the public is not related to law enforcement and making arrests. It's service oriented. We're a community caretaking group. We help take care of this community. Millions of years ago as a people, when we sat around the fire, we didn't do it for other than to stay safe with each other, and that's what we carry on today, serving and protecting.
When people are in their darkest place and they don't know who to reach out to, they call us. And we try to give them services. We try to point them in the right direction. We work with the other groups in this town to get people help that they're asking.
Before we discuss the crime rate, I want to just go over this real quick to let you know exactly what we do have to police. This is important as we go through. I want you to remember this slide. We cover a shift in East Windsor with a minimum of 2 police officers. That's as low as you can go. Somebody needs to back somebody up if they're in a violent domestic or being assaulted or trying to close a road for a serious motor vehicle accident. 2 cops on the road is our minimum. 1 supervisor and 1 dispatcher. That's the minimum on our shifts. We cover 26 square miles and 88 road miles. We have distinct villages in our town, and that means something. Every village district that we have has a different level of policing needs. So Warehouse Point, which is highly compact and urbanized and populated with businesses, they produce a strong need for police services. So Broadbrook might get ignored, or one of the other villages might not get as much police. We hear it all the time, oh, I haven't seen the cops in the neighborhood. Well, that's what we're trying to do by dispersing and deploying. We have different needs. We do border the airport. It's close enough where our hotels and motels are servicing. The Connecticut River borders us. Our residential population of 11,400, it gets much bigger in the daytime as people commute through it. They come here to go to work in our industrial areas. We are on the 91 corridor, and our population demographics, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit as we move along, because there are a portion of people who think the population demographics of East Windsor doesn't belong in the conversation. Well, I got news for you. It does, and we're going to talk about it. We have current and changing local conditions. Anybody by the Showcase Cinema and have a view of potentially what might happen in 5 years, we have changing growth, and we have to talk about it, and we have to police what we have. Then I'm going to go over what's called UCR indicators in East Windsor, and we'll discuss that. So let's talk about the UCR program. It seems to be popular this budget cycle. It appears there are several criminal justice experts in the area, and I'd like to talk about it so that we all become experts. The program started in 1930. Local PDs, county police departments, state, tribal, federal law enforcement agencies, 18,000 plus across the country, voluntarily provide the nation with crime statistics through the UCR program. It's run by the FBI, we self-report, send it to them, and we keep track of the Part 1 offenses. Murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, motor vehicle theft, and arson. This data is only a starting point. That small set of crimes, it's only a starting point. There's a lot of other stuff going on.
And we need to reflect on how we get that data to the FBI. The data is given to the FBI through our records management system automatically. We don't have somebody in a room counting crimes. It's done automatically. So what our supervisors do, they monitor our employees, make sure they're coding each crime properly. It goes into our records management system. At the end of the month, we send a report out to UCR and to NIVERS, which the chief is going to talk about in a little bit.
And there could be nuances of it. If I walk over here and I take this phone and I steal it, that's a larceny and it's a theft. If she then grabs that phone, resists me, I punch her in her face and I still take her phone, it just became a robbery. So we got to code properly, and that's what we do. We train on it, we code properly, and we self-report. Here's the warning that everybody doesn't want to read. So I'm going to read it for us. The data user is therefore cautioned against comparing statistical data of an individual reporting unit from towns or cities solely on the basis of their population or their UCR data alone. That seems to be real popular in East Windsor. They forget that there are other variables that affect crime in a particular town or city or other jurisdiction. So without having those variables in there, you can make no meaningful comparisons. Yep. The FBI goes on to say for responsible crime analysis, when we're providing that information, the FBI cautions, in fact, strongly discourages the data user from ranking or evaluating locales for their effectiveness in law enforcement. So because you had 12 of this and 5 of this, there's a lot of other stuff going on. There's a legitimate use for it. The news media uses it, tourism groups use it, or government agencies use it. Throughout the entire nation, people want to rank cities and towns and jurisdictions based on crime. So it's just a starting point, a quick choice for a data user, but without the other variables and conditions of crime in a particular town or jurisdiction, it's not valuable until you start to factor that stuff in. So let's talk about what we have here in East Windsor. So over the course of the last few weeks, some people don't want to talk about the variables that exist in East Windsor. In fact, when I said the proximity or the presence of an interstate highway can impact your crime. Our crime in East Windsor is on the I-91 corridor, and it's different than the crime in East Granby. There's no way to refute that. It's a fact. The response is every town has a highway.
No.
That's not how it works. People are people everywhere. They're the same in South Windsor. They're the same in Ellington. They're the same everywhere. Socioeconomic conditions, we don't have to consider those. Well, I have bad news. We do. Our median income, our poverty level, job availability, all of that matters. I know the school people are in the building, so tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe 43% of our students receive free or reduced lunch. Does that say something level, and does it impact crime later on in life? Yeah, I've historically studied this, comprehensively investigated this. These factors are known to impact crime. Is there a river? Are there bridges going over that river? Do homeless people live under those bridges? Do they need services? Do crimes occur? Is the airport? What's our population density in urban residential impact communities? Hartford has what it has because it's more urbanized than us. But we're different than, say, Simsbury. It's just the way it is.
And folks, remember, we're smart guys. I'll take that. We didn't make this stuff up. This stuff is online. Just go to UCR. You'll see all this data. It's there. We didn't make it up.
Modes of transportation and commuting patterns. It can mean a lot of things. People come down Route 5 and 140 from Stafford, from Somers, from Ellington to get to the highway, to go to work to Springfield, to Hartford, to New York or Boston. They have to get in accidents. They might see crimes that occur. It makes a difference. Busing, things of that nature, you see that in Hartford. It's an impact factor. Conclusions that are based on that population and UCR data, they have serious implications because people are trying to make budget decisions off it when the FBI strongly encourages that you use all the factors. And that's what we've been doing for a lot of years in our career. We're equal distance between Hartford and Springfield. What does that mean? Well, it means that if a drug dealer from Hartford wants to meet a drug dealer from Springfield, are they going to meet in the middle off I-91 where there's a derelict parking lot with poor view, or there's a real busy shopping center where nobody would pay attention to them, or are they going to go 6 miles off the highway to a community where that doesn't exist? That's what that means. They also have to realize the effective strength of the agency, our police officers, our detectives, our staff, goodness of that police department. For those of you who don't know law enforcement, Some police departments are very proactive. How many people see the East Windsor Police Department stopping cars, working the Route 5 corridor, the Route 140 corridor? Bad guys get to bad things by driving. Although I've caught burglars on a bike, which is interesting. They use cars, so we're assertive. So if we're aggressive and assertive and we make more arrests than a PD 5 over, we're going to have a higher crime rate reported. That's because we're producing it. The residents' attitudes towards crime and trust of the police. When I first took this agency over, we were very different than we are today. We get along with our community, we enjoy a true partnership, and they trust us, they respect us. We go to their housing units, we go to their groups, we do presentations, we interact with them through social. Are you more apt to report a police or a crime to a police department that you trust, or one that you might see on TV that has distrust and they don't want to say what happened to them? Like you said, people are at their very worst when things are happening and they feel comfortable with us. That has an impact.
We talk to everybody, we say, call us for anything and everything.
We have a motto: call early, call often. We put it on everything we do.
Right.
Call early, call often, and it's working. Let's talk about real quick mobility and transience factors. There's things like mobile home parks. There's also things like group homes and outpatient facilities that we have a number of. Just think in our minds as you go around East Windsor, these homes are producing crimes and calls for service. We go to the location on the board at least 4 times a day. There's incidents that are occurring, there's crimes, there's service needs, there's a lot of things going on because of what we have in this town that another community might not. Local conditions may impact crime. I'm going to call it right out. We have a Super Walmart. We have a Southern Auto. We have Lincoln Tech. We have health outpatient homes. We have a juvenile detention facility whose primary law enforcement agency is the Connecticut State Police. I have a cop from the police station sitting in the back. Ask if the Connecticut State Police or the East Windsor Police responds to that as the first responder. It's us. So it has an impact. Elderly housing units, large residential complexes, they all impact crime and the volume of service needed in East Windsor. Did I say? Yep, there it is. Adult entertainment, it has an impact. So let's go right back to what I started with. I gave you all the variables, I gave you all the conditions. Now we're right back to the demographics and the geography of the town of East Windsor. We're unique, we're different. You can't compare us to Summers and Ellington. It's insulting. It's insulting. Look at the actual numbers, because this is what we've been told. We have the 4th highest crime rate in the state. Him and I aren't doing our jobs, apparently. So let's talk about UCR and NIDRS.
So what this chart demonstrates very simply is this is actually a year that we had a spike in crime, is 2014. This data right here shows every community that is less than 15,000 that reports to UCR in the state of Connecticut. So as you can see, East Windsor, some of the folks maybe in the back, we tried to highlight it a little bit. We had a spike that year. This is violent crime. We had a spike in violent crime. I believe our numbers were somewhere around 23 for that particular year.
Remember, the first 1 crimes that we talked. Sorry.
So you see other towns are in that general area. Some are past us with the same basic population, less than 15,000. And then the following year, we had a reduction. And some towns, as we can see, had a spike, because sometimes that happens with crime. In that year, 2014, we had a rash of robberies and we had a homicide that occurred in our community. A homicide that we didn't even know about, because the homicide, the individual who was involved in this incident went to a hospital outside of our community. We found out a month later that he sustained injuries while in our community. And that gets labeled by the medical examiner as a homicide, and it, again, spikes our data.
You remember in 14 as we had the robberies in Route 5 140 corridor, where the good news is our detective division solved most of, if not all of those robberies.
So we had a reduction. And then the next year, 2016, which is the most current data that's out there. 2017 data is available, but we can't release it because it has to be tweaked. But the 2016, look at East Windsor here. There's at least 1, 2, 3, 4. Somebody sat at this table and said that we're one of the most dangerous communities, but we're just like every other community, basically the same size.
Not at this table.
Not at this table. At this table.
We're talking about, and I'm not saying any crime is good because we work our butts off to prevent it and solve it. That's what we do. We're talking about 16 incidents, and we're being compared to Bridgeport, which we have more homicides than that. So we're different. Now the population plays a role, and a whole bunch of math starts to go in because it's per 100,000. But I'm telling you right now, we know what's happening, and we had 14 as a spike. So NIBRS goes a little deeper. It's an incident-based, national incident-based. It's a victimization one where they kind of want to know the time and the location where that part 1 stuff that I told you about is just kind of clicking off a number. Here in the NIBRS group, there's 49 offenses in 23 crime categories in Group A. And then there's an 10 Group B offenses, everything now, fraud, animal cruelty, prostitution, loitering, DUI. And as we've talked about, DUI is a crime against society. If there's no accident, there's no victim. It's just a crime against society where the assertiveness of the police officer making that DUI arrest, so that number is getting counted. Everything. So I want you to understand NIBRS has a much larger group of taking track of numbers. This is the NIBRS data. So in 2008, we had 940 incidents in the NIBRS system, 1,057 in 2009. And then you see the reduction. For the last 8 years, we've been under 800 NIBRS incidents, and I'm talking everything of those incidents that we talked about.
And remember, proactive policing fight those numbers because we're out there making DUI to a Metro Traffic Services where we have DUIs where we work together. We bring 20 police officers from around the area all to work a DUI checkpoint. That's going to spike those numbers a little bit, proactive.
The disclaimer again, 17 seriously preliminary data. It could change, but that was the last count that I checked today. So then we were told we're the biggest police department in the area. My God, we're huge. We have cops everywhere. So let's talk about that. In 2014, we were at 24 police officers. Then that data would have been different, but something happened.
But let's remember how we got to 26 officers. When I first came here, we had 26 police officers. 11 years ago, we had 26 police officers. We lost a community resource officer that was cut from the budget, and we lost an SRO that we had on a grant. After the grant was done, the SRO position was eliminated. And then some things started happening in our community. And the public outcry was they wanted the SRO position back. So we were at 24. We tried presenting it as an SRO budget, but it just wasn't flying. But the community said, this is what
happened in that building over there. There were 400 plus people that night, and I would bet a lot of you were there. And overwhelmingly you said, we want an SRO in the town of East Windsor. Taxpayer dollars for it, we don't care if it comes out of the school, the police, so it's fully funded out of us, and we went to 25 officers.
Then our opioid epidemic kicked in full speed, and some bad things happened in our community. And again, there was public outcry, and the public demanded that we do something. So we did. We joined with surrounding communities in a narcotics enforcement once we got the budget approved. And our staffing went up to 26 officers. So here we are at East Windsor is all the way over here, and I apologize for the small font, it's a little hard. And these are Groton, Orange, towns that are basically the same size as us, that have very similar makeup. Some of those check boxes that the chief talked about earlier, some of these towns have those. Woodbridge, look at Woodbridge. The population is in dark blue, the police officers are in light blue. I think it's pretty smart stuff.
So then at subsequent meetings, they talked about all kinds of data, 1.7, this, that, the other. We're the professionals. Our community charges us to run this police department, and then they give us the authority to do it, and they trust us. So that's what we study and do. You see our police employee data without doing the variables and the factors and the conditions that I talked about, I-91 and everything else, the straight numbers. 2.4 sworn police officers per 1,000 residents. So 2.4 times 11,400 equals 27.3. That's without talking about one variable. East Windsor has 26. They then do everybody, sworn and civilian together, dispatchers, clerical, everything. 3.4 per 1,000 residents times 11,400, 38.7 full-time employees. We have 35. We do have 2 part-time ACOs. We used to have 1 full-time, but we reduced it, saved the benefits, saved a lot of money. We run 2 part-time ACOs and they do not get still lower. So let's talk about full disclosure, state of Connecticut, based on the most recent 2016 data. Take a look at your news, open up your newspaper. Hartford suffered tremendous losses in their sworn numbers, one of the largest police departments in the state. The Connecticut State Police is down a tremendous amount. So the 2.4 national northeast number is now in Connecticut at 2.22. If you do our math, we're actually sitting at 2.27, and we're about 0.05 above the Connecticut standard. So we are not the biggest police department in free America. We are a police department policing unique East Windsor.
So this is our organizational chart, and for many, many years, we've put it online for everybody to see. There was a time where we literally had to put numbers up here to show exactly what each box represented so folks would understand that we are telling you the truth. And if you take the time to count, you will see that there's 6 dispatchers and there's 26 police officers, including the chief and I in those police officers. And the part-time ACO positions that the chief talked about. This org chart is on our website and will be updated as things change and as we go through. And it's been there for several years.
So over the last few weeks, I've been told that I have 30 cops. I've been told that I have 35 cops, that I'm hiding them at the academy. That's what I have. That's it. Then we were asked what we do with our money. So, we do with our money. We run a patrol division, caring police department that does uniform patrol. We have a very active, very well-trained detective division who I would compare to anybody. I have a communications division, a records division for all of our FOI requests. Everything that's going on with that has gotten a lot more. We have the administration. We run our narcotics officer, our school resource officer. We have what's called a selective traffic enforcement program, where we target problem areas when the community makes complaints. We're also part of regional groups such as CREST, which is Capital Region Emergency Services, and Metro, which is traffic. So instead of paying for these huge services, we pay a smaller entry fee. So if we need a SWAT team, which CREST is, we get the services of 20 SWAT operators for the cost of only 2. We're community partnership. We do trust and legitimacy. We listen to our community. We do prevention programming. We stop by to stores and give them crime prevention tips. On the admin side, you can jump in anytime.
Yeah, because we participate in CREST and Metro, we receive grant funding that many towns our size don't receive. We just received a $20,000 grant for click it or ticket. That's us out there doing enforcement for not wearing your seatbelt. I take that back. That grant was for distracted driving. Distracted driving. But we get distracted driving grants, and we get the click it or ticket grants every year because we belong to Metro Traffic Services, where other communities don't get that. As far as the police administration, we work together with our officers to make sure that they get adequate training. Every police officer is required to have hours of training in very specific areas over a 3-year period. Firearms training, they have to have a certain amount of firearms training every single year. This is mandated by the state. We didn't make this stuff up. Again, it's mandated by the state, required. We do, every single day, we manage the budget. We give our budget expenditures to the police commission on a monthly basis, and they scrutinize every single expenditure that we do.
Real quick, crime is regional. So when you see cars broken into, it's not just Windsor. It's happening in Windsor Locks. It's happening in South Windsor. This town got a little piece and shared it with our piece. So we're part of task force that target human trafficking. CTIC is the Connecticut Information Center, where we modus operandi of our crime compared to the other areas to solve crime. NESPIN is the state police version of that. We've been members of Cold Case, where we solved a double homicide from 1980s, mid-80s. I believe I was like a freshman in high school or something. So we continue to be part of that. So we touch it all. We manage the money and we make it work. So as committed financial stewards of the money, we are responsible for that money, and we do everything we can to protect it. So for the last 3 years, that's what we've given back. So does that mean we didn't need that money? No. It means we've had retirements and there's extra salary. There's a purchase that didn't have to be made or got extended. Whatever the reason is, we didn't spend that money. So we didn't just go out and spend it and we turned it back to the town. Responsible and committed to being financially prudent. We make moral, ethical, prudent decision-making and leadership. We've earned that respect here in front of all these boards. We've proven that this is what we do and who we are. So this is the motion. This is our current situation. The Board of Selectmen has reduced our budget by $965. They zeroed us, 0.99 down to 0. So let's discuss that a little bit. Actually, let's back it up. $32,965 equates to half of an East Windsor police officer's salary. We talked about salary versus operations. The length or the amount of that money is going to strike at us in a very deep way.
It's important to see what the motion, to take it from the officer line. So all that $32,000 with people that manage the budget every single day and the people that monitor it every single month. No discussion, nothing. Let's take it out of the officer line. That was what the motion was.
So the Police Commission, Chairman Leach, the Police Administration, were respectfully requesting a 0.99 budget increase or $32,965. We're also requesting the return of our cruiser to the CIP. We have been battling this battle and this fight since I've been here. The cycle has been beaten so severely I can't recognize. So we're down to 1 now. We need to return the cruiser to the CIP program.
If you look at our vehicle maintenance line, it's reasonable, and it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be blown up like it has been in the past when we were down vehicles. There's a reason for that, and I think it was argued by the selectmen that, so that was their reasoning behind the car from CIP. Well, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to budget responsibly, and that's...
And to that point, this was done 11 years ago. When I first came to this police department, they took away every single vehicle. There was 0 vehicles. Then we went into a hole because we had high mileage vehicles that were requiring a large amount of work, maintenance and work, and we finally got this system going. And we've been preaching to some of you folks year after year after year, and I apologize that we keep having to say this, but it is what it is. 2323 works for this community. 21 it works for this community. And if we can do that and continue to do that, then we can pass down viable vehicles to other town departments. We're getting rid of Crown Vics, we only have 2 Crown Vics left in the fleet. Now we're gonna be passing down Interceptors that are all-wheel drive vehicles that are gonna be able to be used by other departments.
Another thing to note is our maintenance line right now is only 10,000 shy of buying another cruiser. Get a cruiser from CIP, it's definitely gonna drive our maintenance costs up. Eventually, it's gonna happen. So at that point, we're gonna be looking at purchasing another cruiser with the maintenance costs, so it makes no sense.
So, on a personal note, trying to get to know other boards and commissions, I've said this to you a lot. I have the head for frugal financial oversight, but I have the heart for service. I love this town, and I love my job. And I was told in a recent meeting that every department head here said that. Well, that to me is insulting because I care. So I need to dispel some information because it attacks my integrity. Why don't we deploy part-time sworn police officers like the town of Glastonbury Police Department does to lower our costs? I was directly asked several times, do I consider doing that? Are you doing that? Because Glastonbury does. So I called the police chief in Glastonbury, and he was a fairly new chief, and he said, well, I've only been here for a short time, but let me start walking around the building and looking for them because I've never seen them. The last time they had a police officer working in a part-time capacity was 35 years ago. So I told that board member that I didn't believe there were part-timers. Now I verified it. We don't use the program to defer costs. There used to be systems in place called block train time police officers in a part-time way, and then they could defer costs. They could be cheaper as a component. Full-time academy certification and training hours.
I guarantee if we hire a part-time police officer, he's gonna be a part-time or she's gonna be a part-time police officer in our police department for about the time it takes to get the training, and then they're gonna go full-time somewhere else because it's different people right now.
We also told them not possible with the union negotiation contracts as it is. They don't want subpar police officers. We have struggled to hire and maintain the best police officers. We have degrees, we have training. We are well prepared to handle the services in this town. Then I was asked, why do you pay for your police officers' books and education when the town of Bloomfield does not? So we pay for it because it's important. We have bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, more than one master's degree, criminal justice, public administration, social services, and social work. We are highly educated, highly trained, and motivated to serve. That's why we pay for it. And we do it on the sworn police side, and that's what we were talking about, for $10,000. That's it. It can't exceed $10,000.
And honestly, as I sat there, I didn't have the collective bargaining agreement in front of me for Bloomfield. But I sure took the time, about 5 minutes after I walked out of these doors, to bring the collective bargaining agreement. Because that's in each collective bargaining agreement for each town, and it's negotiated. And as we all know, it's a long process to negotiate these agreements. So I looked at Bloomfield. Bloomfield pays for 80% of the tuition to go to any law enforcement related course, including public administration, law enforcement, criminology, all those, at the rate of the tuition for UConn. All right, with no cap. So, to compare that to $10,000,
So I want you to know as a board, we're frugal with it, we make it work, and you have a highly educated police department. That a reduction in the police department budget of $32,965 would not negatively impact contractual obligations. It had no impact on the contract. In fact, the contract for the police department is coming up for negotiations in June. So I got bad news for you. There's a lot of contractual obligations in there that if it doesn't get funded, certain things aren't going to happen.
and going back to the, these are some of the areas that we talked about. We talked about some of the salary contractually obligated increases. And every single one that is highlighted in red, it has some degree of connection to a collective or a bargaining agreement. Each one of those. So if we don't have the money to fund any of those, where are we gonna get the funds from? We have to take it from somewhere else.
So here we have all those step increases that we talked about. They didn't go away, they're still there. So 3 years going to 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, there are step increases in there that have to be. Time gets impacted, the training salary gets impacted. Our professional services, we're in contracts with Crest and Metro that we have to have obligations to. So we do have contractual obligations in that budget. So we're getting close to the end. Thank you for being patient. We wrote down in our budget, you can see them word for word here. These are our goals. These are our priorities. We were told that they're just words on a paper. That's what I was told. This is what I strive to do as a police chief and what we strive to do as a cohesive agency serving you. We strive to achieve outstanding customer service for everyone we serve by way of accountability, fiscal responsibility, and community involvement. It's our goal to strive towards increased professionalism by continuing to update our policies and procedures with the goal of obtaining level accreditation. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a way of procedures in the best industry standard, and it reduces lawsuits and practices, and it makes you a better police department because it's been tested elsewhere. It's our goal to collaborate with the community to find proactive ways to combat and reduce crime, as well as traffic-related issues in our community. It's our goal to look to the future for technological advances in law enforcement and research ways to implement them. We want to start using technology to do what we do smarter. Not more expensive, but in a more focused, smarter way. We have records management, computer-aided dispatching that can place us in certain areas at certain times when we know crime's going to happen. Then we were told that we never put a goal or a priority in to protect our schools and protect our students. How dare we? Well, they've been on the board for 4 months. They don't know what I do at that school. They don't know what the goal last year was, or 5 years ago, or what I've succeeded in at. That's my priority. It wasn't there this year because it's an accomplished goal that we're in a maintenance phase now.
And on that note, we enjoy an unprecedented relationship with our school. We really do. It's unprecedented.
So I want you to remember those goals, and I want you to look at this manual. That's a book. It's the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. It is the premier and the preeminent guide to build trust between a law enforcement agency and the community you serve. It was written under President Obama by major city chiefs to academia to everybody who had an interest in crime and what's going on in our society when you see the revolt against police in this town or in this nation, but not in this country. Many pieces of this later. It's called the 6 pillars in this program. Build trust and legitimacy. That people, your community trust you. Policy and oversight. You got to do it right. Technology and social media. Community policing and crime reduction. Training and education. You turn on the news to see a police officer who's killed himself. What we see and what we do every day has a cumulative stress. It has an impact on us, so we need to take care of each other. We focus our goals and priorities on achieving concrete recommendations that are engaged in this book on a national level, the big picture. So I don't want to hear someone say that my goals are just sitting on a piece of paper. Look at what's underlined, and then look at what's in the 21st century policing. Our goals are important to the community. Speaking of technology, please follow us on Facebook. We'd love to interact with you. 11,400, and we're sitting at 11,600 plus people following and liking us. We solve crime with it. We do all kinds of educational components on it. We have people that review us. Some people don't like us, some people do. I would venture we have an extremely high satisfactory review on Facebook. exactly what Pillar 3 says, to use technology, to use social media. We do virtual ride-alongs. We go to our high school to watch basketball games. We interact with people on the internet. And we solve crime and we listen to them, and it works for us. Thank you for being patient.
And thank you, honestly, for your time, and to the other professionals and folks in the room. We sincerely apologize, but this was a message that we thought needed to be sent.
Thank you very, very much. And first of all, one of our jobs, obviously, is to be fiscally responsible and to take care of the town also. So do I have a motion to reinstate the officer salary full-time line to $2,019,505?
Yes, you do, I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion clearly passes.
Thank
We'll do
you.
the rest of
Now, look up the PowerPoint for emergency management.
Emergency management's before you. Do you have any questions?
it. Are you kidding? Huh?
It's a 2% increase. 400 bucks.
How do you know that? Hey, Bob.
Yeah,
Why is the light not on?
it probably froze.
Can you check it?
Well, I can't do it.
Not you, Joe's back there. He just looked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the IT guys
You
here.
do a lot better than me.
The IT guys here.
Just everybody look at it.
Operations.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's on here, it's
All
on
right,
the
so
loop.
that works. It always freezes this side when I'm home watching it, yeah. I don't know why. All right, perfect. All right, emergency management.
We were joking, we didn't do a PowerPoint.
That's you too.
Any questions?
I don't think so, because most of it we went over when we talked before.
Yeah.
Are there any emergency management questions? I think some of you saw the presentation in front of the Board of Selectmen. And I never say that, but I'm
That'd be interesting for the kids.
He gets a good seat. You gotta take care of your people, right?
So the only, I'll kind of skip to it, I mean, with the year-to-date expenditures on equipment maintenance, we have 67% remaining. The reason that is because that's we use that money for the generator. So if the generators don't really have a lot of maintenance this year, a lot of things going down, we won't spend the money, we'll just kick it back.
Any other questions for emergency management? It's pretty straightforward. I don't think so. All right, and police commission wise, I don't think there is. Oh, go ahead. Yep.
I'm kind of curious, this stipends line looks heavy for just the two officers. Are all the members now paid stipends, emergency management?
So that actually covers myself and the deputy and the secretary. It's actually about a third of what other towns pay. It's usually around $24,000, $25,000 in like Towland and Simsbury and other locations. That number hasn't gone up more than 2% in every year that I've been part of it.
So this is 3 people.
Correct. That's everything for 3 people.
Benefits,
No benefits.
No benefit.
No benefits.
It's a stipend. All right, and police commission is just your secretary with no change. Any other questions? Good to go?
I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, thank you for all you do for our
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, enter Warehouse Point Library. Warehouse Point Library? Oh, grab another. Hello. meet you.
Nice to meet you. This is Lee Spielberg, board chair. That's a tough act to follow. Hope that I can provide some information and background, not knowing the process, not having been through it before. I'm going to prepare just a little bit of context, if that's okay for you.
Absolutely.
For my questions.
Thanks.
I did want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you on behalf of the library for the tasks that you have ahead of you. Thank you for your work on a big project. Aside from emergency services that spoke well for themselves tonight, the library may be the only service agency in East Windsor that serves every age group. We support young families, preschool children, elementary, middle, and young adult students. We provide information assistance to adults who are beginning their work lives and are in the middle of their careers, that are seeking new training or certification. Last week, get certification renewal through online systems. We help people who are preparing for retirement, and we talk to seniors every day who come in our doors, and we are the place that they come to talk to a human being, to borrow a book, to have some human contact. So we do quite a lot for all ages in the community, which I suspect everyone knows who's ever been to a library. This year we completed a grant that brought free high-speed fiber optic internet connections to the library. We offer free access to computers, though we are in bad need of upgrades. None of our computers are more recent than 5 years old. We have computers, or this week, and we've had 6 programs this week, and we have had about 15 or 20 this month. Those include children's programs and story times, among others. We have a bluegrass concert coming this weekend, and just a few weeks ago we had a tax reform program for people who did not know how the new tax programs, the new tax legislation is going to affect them. We plan to follow that up in the fall as tax season comes in. So we offer quite a lot to the community. Tutors use the library every day. These are students who come in with tutors and on a daily basis to work on education. We offer free adult programs. If support of the library is an effective way of reaching out to every member of the community. We are there for anyone who walks in the door. Here's the thing. This would be the second year that it's been recommended that we have a 0% budget. You know that a 0% budget is a cut. No one can operate on the that the year before. Our cost, the state is providing fewer services. There's a great deal of talk about what is going to happen for library costs across the state among all librarians as state services are reduced, because we will not have a reduction in what we are asked to offer, but we will have to make up some of those costs and find other ways to provide those services. They're going to be tough issues. When we appeared before the Board of Selectmen this year, we did not ask the town to fund us at levels comparable to our nearest neighbors. Neither did we lessen our commitment to the library. We lessened the commitment of the library associations for levels of funding. We plan to fund at the same level we have in the past. We asked for $15,850. That's a 6% increase, one that would cover essentially years, not 1 year, in order to bring some of our services up, just materials, which is a very big gap in our collection, in our funding at this point. With the budget proposal, we're also committed to evaluating our services and vendors. We told the Board of Selectmen that was a big agenda item for us this year, to look at how we could best provide the best service at the best cost. That's one of our big goals for the year. And to further improve library technology by replacing computers that simply can't keep up with the fiber optics that we've already. With all of that said, I also went out and looked at towns near us and thought about what is the comparison? How do we fit into this region in terms of how the library is supported? And I actually have a handout for everyone that's knowing that not every town is the same, there's still some striking comparisons. I've come in from a professional life where I've worked in schools, I've worked in libraries, I've worked in nonprofit agencies. I looked to see what was happening in the state. I've talked with other librarians, and I looked at communities that were comparable to us in economics, and then I looked at our neighbors. And what I see from our neighbors is that we are funding the library's year with only 69% of municipal contribution. The library contributes, it's up to the operating income at 31%. That's a number that compares to 94% in Ellington from the municipal, 98% in South Windsor, 92% in Windsor Locks. East Granby funds at 65%. But the thing I would say with Granby is that they are also at a lower than East Windsor is. They're able to fundraise. In their toughest circumstances, they're better able to fundraise. The library's contribution per capita for the town is about $10.17, about $10.17 compared to amounts that range from 96 cents to $2.76. East Granby at $20.93 is spending more at the library. Okay, that's a little bit of context. I would note from this, the operating budget for the library also is paying for its own remodeling, its own landscaping, all of its building maintenance, all of those, our internet, our telephone, all of those things are coming from the library. Other municipal libraries, neighboring municipal libraries, association libraries in the state receive some funding for that from their town. That is a very common situation. It's not every place in the state, but it is a common situation. With the annual cost of operations, maintenance, basic services, and materials, a second year budget increase will continue to reduce the services, the actual library services that we can bring to the community, because we are paying for all of those maintenance costs instead. We aren't able to meet our mandate, our mission, which is to bring materials, support literacy, provide the community centers, have informational programs to do all of these other things that help. We're open a fairly comparable number of hours per week. We have a very low number of computers compared to others. Not one that we can't do better with. We certainly have computers that are used, but they are old and need replacement. The most shocking thing for me coming into this library was the materials expenditure per capita. We spend $1.84 per person for all materials of all types that we buy, compared to the lowest number, East Granby, which is $4.80. That's a very low municipal contribution to materials, and I think that is reflective of the costs that we have to carry to keep our building operating. You'll notice on the second page, I also have given you a quick list of things that we do for free for the community for the computers, which I've already mentioned. Information services, generally using those computers include helping people find employment, training, helping that nurse to get her certification, and navigate the system, which was pretty complicated for doing that. Helping people find how-to information, how to fix their plumbing or repair in their house, local social service, find a local business or even a not local business if need be to meet some need in their life. There are many more things. We offer free books and magazines, including large print and audio, which are very popular. We have story time, early literacy support for preschool and elementary school children. We have a community for parents of young children, and anyone who's raised a family knows that there are things you just don't know how to do, and having someone that you can, I ran into this problem, my kid is doing this, I don't know what to do about it, it's invaluable. We offer that space where that conversation happens. We have free informational and cultural programs for children that a discounted free park and museum pass away with their families. And finally, we have meeting spaces for East Windsor groups and associations with a nonprofit status. So we offer quite a lot to the community. We're asking for a relatively small increase so that we can continue to meet those needs. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anything? Any questions? Pretty straightforward. Right, I think we're good.
Actually, hold on.
Okay.
In the paperwork I was originally given here in our book, I'll call it, the number is 319,549. 19,000 your request.
The original request?
Yes.
Yeah, originally to the Board of Selectmen.
Correct. My predecessor put in a request, 24%.
Okay.
So when we came in front of the Board of Selectmen, we reduced that.
So the number you yourself presented was the 272,850.
Was 272,850, and we did that because we know that 24% is a big lift.
Okay.
I went through his numbers just as a little bit of background because I can understand why you think that's a big change. If we were to be at a level comparable to other communities in our earth, $60,000 more in our budget would be about right.
Okay.
But that would be an irresponsible thing to ask, in my opinion. I think that no town could come up with that in a single year.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're going to make a motion to take a quick 5-minute recess. Second? All those in favor?
Oh, there's no way.
I won't.
Oh, no.
You go first.
Only her. Quiet. Stand up. Quiet.
Sir.
I feel like pillow.
I don't have
You have I need pillows for a variety.
big day.
Quite honestly. That's all right.
Where were you before?
Not that I worked for the state, I worked as a consultant for the state of Massachusetts Department of Education as my title was level 4 plan manager. So I was the liaison between the state Department of Education and the district. That was one level of taken by the state. So I did that for a year. director of events, I was director of student sport and credit coordinator. So I was there for
Now he's Windsor. Plus the guys that they lived in our friend who was educating and I understand, I'm a parent.
Yeah.
I said, no,
I'm not gonna do that.
the kids were much older. And worried about that too. Very well. Where is he?
No, you're, but is he still in the school?
Oh, no, graduated from something.
That's your youngest.
Stay awake, Dick.
That's my baby.
Thank you, okay.
My other kids are older.
Oh, all right.
I know, I don't.
Everything?
Well,
We can be best friends.
Absolutely, and you told me I don't want to go to school, and then I have this one. So, and I went, but yeah, I
21 and
have
11. My kids were 15, second and third were 15 years ago.
okay.
So, yeah, so, but like, and mostly kids in his class. His friends as adults. No, I think they very yeah, right. Yeah, because we were not doing those dams like in the early 2000s. That wasn't even on our radar.
My grade graduated college, so I graduated in computers. I saw Randy
Right, exactly.
Your favorite candy?
Unfortunately, I was
Although I was very much in the
I was much more tired, so I didn't have the energy.
Well, that's really it. Oh, she's around here somewhere.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it is very good.
I say, Chris and Becker got the best of my.
No. No, the front one by me is a model. And an office. Yeah. Yeah, so the other two are up. They might be, but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, when I toured the one in the front, it wasn't to the beginning. But it's nice. Absolutely, but in a spec, we do. It's usually got all the top.
I work for a builder.
It is. 10 years younger.
You walk through the door, open wall.
Yeah.
No, not even shaking.
Plus, that was
Have the
she gets the best of everything.
Good for her. She probably deserves it.
I gotta tell you.
I know, but we didn't have all the fancy transitions.
Office is in the garage. Oh, I don't think I would turn it into a garage. It's a beautiful.
Black and white.
probably, but I'm good with it.
Good.
That's more my style too, because I'm an accountant.
I had to do an online training program for this application. And I said, I need to designer, because like, you know, we kind of put
They're supposed to cut
they
it.
were like, wow, we need to like.
They're supposed to cut a new,
Color, and I'm like, really?
The address is gonna change, theoretically.
But my front yard, you know, if you looked at it, it was street. This is the street. I would put this in. So, I drove by this twice, and I paid this right away. It's not ours. You're gonna take what you get in it right away. There's not always a big fan diving, you're gonna square it off. And then we're gonna cut it.
There's two left on here, we got a whole bunch of.
No, I don't think I can. Yeah, no, I plan to. You made the rest of the July. But that's why I never, during the mud and the dirt. I'm so sick of it. My favorite.
I have to, because we do all
Yeah.
can't have a state drive.
No, you ruin it.
And not only that, we were draining all the whole road at one time. Until I finally got some money. I mean, the whole street, 27 all drained down my driveway. I had holes that deep.
So that'll be good, and then my husband will have to plow it. Right away. Yeah, that's all right, but if this is Scannick Road and this is my house, here's my mailbox, here's the driveway, my yard. It does, it goes out. I have some new driveways. But it's not in line with my house.
All right, we're gonna call the meeting back to order at 8:40 p.m. and we are on the Board of Education. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
You did your presentation.
I won't call it fancy, we didn't come anywhere near the chief's level. So really just came tonight to answer questions for you guys, so.
Yep. I don't have them if I can find them. No, I didn't read it this time. This time. So, one of the questions I had, because we did put the technology in, but yet we're talking about the technology in April for starting this year.
Correct.
So
we weren't quite sure where to go with that, because if we don't put it in now, it doesn't get in, and if it comes out later, that's different, because it went someplace else, so.
Right. And what was the, and I know I don't have the number here, what was the number? Technology.
58.
Okay.
Just the first year lease was about 58,000. And if you hold on, I thought I did. Yeah, 58.4.
Okay.
Was year one. So obviously the overall conversation goes different. You know.
Yep.
There was a particular.
You can go. Anybody go ahead. Just like when easier.
I know you presented to us, and you gave your reason that you cut a fair amount to get it to where it's at right now, above where you feel this is a solid, strong number, and it's 5.7. My question to you is not a number on this paper, is what can your parent-teacher organization, whatever, do if we were to put this number you gave us to vote in the first referendum? How could you help promote this budget that maybe is over your path?
Well, first I need to say there are legal limits on what we can do. We cannot, as a district, a budget stance. We go actually, and Laura, correct me, PTO is a nonprofit and are not able.
We became a 501c3 a few years ago, so they cannot do take a political stance.
Okay.
individual members, and I have shared this with the entire district staff. I clarified our legal limitations and what can and cannot be done, and sent it out in a budget update to the entire district. Individual members of our staff can choose to advocate on their own time using their own resources. So they cannot use a district-issued computer to send an email. They cannot use parent contact information that they have through their employment, but they can request a list of parent names and emails under Freedom of Information, which other organizations do, and they can choose to advocate based on their opinion of this budget in any way they choose outside of work time, and that has been shared with them already.
Because I'll agree that we've been hard for the board. I'm not saying I haven't been on the board for 5 years, but I mean the board has been hard on. I look through here, and you guys have it all broke out, and the numbers mean, and Andy's are, know what they are. And I'm in agreement. That we need to invest in our schools and the technology and whatever to bring us up to where we need to be. But like I said, the day you did your presentation, we just have a hard time passing the budget. That's
all too well, having been on the ground trying to promote the town budget for many years in many ways. A lot of dollars, a lot of hours, a lot of time spent.
A lot of frustration.
A lot of frustrations.
Do you feel that a majority of the parents feel that the budget is too low? Too high?
I hear that. I hear that we need more in our schools. I also hear some parents say, I wish I could vote yes, but my own personal finances prevent me from doing that. I have heard that. Not out of the majority, that's the more rare comment that I've heard. I have parents ask me, what can we do? I tell them, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, email your social group. I've been known to go to soccer games and hand out, information at soccer games and different, little league games and whatever it is I could find parents at. Bill Shoulder games, trying to get people to pay attention. Parents are busy, unfortunately, with kids. They don't have the kind of time that some other groups in our town have. And I think they just sort of think it's a no-brainer, that it's what we need, so it's what we should get. Unfortunately, there's another side of things where people are spreading information that we don't need and we shouldn't get. And those people won't listen to me, so it's hard for me to talk with them. So
I did have some strong staff reaction because unfortunately earlier this year, a few months ago, after we first started talking about the budget, in fairness to staff, any positions that were potentially going to be discussed as reductions should the need arise, which we thought based on history, the principals and I met with all of the staff who hold the positions that would be reduced, and that was about 17 people. So following that, there was some strong reaction, not from those staff, but from their colleagues, about the potential for budget reductions that would affect people. Some of them do live in town, some don't. But there was, it's very hard for people to hear the colleagues that they have affection for and have seen the quality of work may not be with us going forward. So I do give the staff a budget update after every meeting, so they'll get an update tomorrow about tonight. If nothing else, to say we had the meeting and this is what was presented and there were questions asked, and remember, this is what you can do in terms of conversation, and this is what you can't do.